We're about to see something most people never get to. Some of the weirdest, most fascinating medical objects in history hidden away here in the storerooms of the Thackray Museum of Medicine in Leeds. These aren't part of the regular exhibits, so I don't know what to expect, but I'm excited. So come along with me and let's find out what kind of weird and wonderful things they've got tucked away here behind closed doors. So I'm here with Natasha. Natasha's very kindly allowed us to come in, going to show us around the storerooms, or the stores as you call them here. Could you tell us a little bit about the Thackray Museum?
Yeah, so the Thackray Museum of Medicine tries to tell the story of medicine and healthcare, and we have 11 permanent galleries and a rotating 12th gallery which has 2 exhibitions a year. So we all have days when we don't feel very well, we all might know people who are very ill. It's always going to touch everyone's life, so it's really, really relevant, and it's something that's been the case throughout history. So we really try and chart the development, but we also explore different social and ethical and modern issues of medicine as well as its past.
And we're going to head into the stores today.
Yep.
See some of the collection that's not currently in the exhibits, some of the more unusual stuff.
Yeah, so what most people might not know about museums is normally if you walk into a museum and you look around the galleries, what you see is maybe about 3 to 5% of what's actually owned by the museum. So in our case, we have about 3,000 items on display, and we actually have 81,500-ish objects, books and archival documents, and those are all stored upstairs. Most of the time, no one ever gets to see them, so we're very excited to show you today.
That's cool.
Welcome to the office floors. Okay, welcome to Store 1. This corridor is the first of many museum stores that we have backstage here. Any guesses what these might be?
Not really.
Some people might recognise them, but yeah, most people won't.
It's like an enormous whiskey jar.
That's actually a really good shout. They did have liquid in them. So they're called a carboy, and they used to be in the window of pharmacies. Okay. And they're kind of like just a symbol to say, hi, we're a pharmacy, come get medicine. In the way that, say, if you're on holiday and you might look for maybe a big cross outside a pharmacy, like a Lloyd-style cross, and that'll be like, oh, thank God, there's medicine. I can go and get plasters or mosquito bite repellent or whatever. So these would normally be half full of very colourful liquids. So welcome, this is the main store. So yeah, this room is where the majority of our object collection is stored. We have a separate library and a separate archive for those kind of things, which we'll see later on. So if you come to the museum, the downstairs part is quite a Victorian Surgery focused section. And these are some of the things that are not on display down there, but still in that theme. And you'll notice a lot of the time, you can very much tell that they've been used. These are bone saws. Oh, yeah. So they're used for amputations. So the first thing you need in an amputation, well, not the first, but the first cutting thing really, you need one of these knives, and you'll use that to cut through the skin and the muscle. But once you've done that, then you need a bone saw to actually hack through the bone. So you don't really have any reliable anesthesia until 1846. Okay. So prior to that, you have people, dying of shock. And even when they start using chloroform and ether, which are the really early types of anesthesia used, there's not always a standardized dose. So sometimes people get too much chloroform and they never wake up again. Sometimes you might have too little. You might wake up during surgery. You might then die of a heart attack or shock. So yeah, it's risky business at the time. And you have a lot of arguments in literature of the time. Some people going, people should go to hospitals, and other people saying, no, they're very dangerous. Again, you can tell also that sterility, the need for things to be sterile, wasn't really fully understood, because these handles are made of very beautiful wood, and that's going to just soak up someone's blood. And then if you put that on someone else's wound, then whatever that other person had, that could go into them.
All right.
Yeah. So it's not the most lovely, clean, sterile atmosphere, but they're very pretty. So dilators and bougies, we've got lots and lots of different kinds of dilators for dilating different passages in the body. Okay. A lot of the ones in here are urethral, so they go in the urethra. And they get terrifying massive. It's like, it makes everyone cross the legs when they come in.
That's a pretty nasty drawer of items.
Yes, I love showing this on store tours with hopefully a content warning beforehand, just in case anyone's very sensitive. And then that one is a very early rectal dilator, that one. So you'll have some that have these kind of different blades, and they can be ratcheted to open up. Yeah, not blade like sharp, but just those different sections there. And again, ivory, which hadn't got any restrictions on it at the time, like it does now.
Choice. That's a nasty drawer.
It is a nasty drawer. Welcome to medicine. There's way worse. One of my favourite ever conversations in this job was a lady called Joan, who was in an iron lung for 6 weeks when she was 6 years old in 1950. And she came and saw, we have a couple of big iron lungs downstairs. For anyone who doesn't know, that's something that if you had polio and you were completely paralyzed and you had trouble breathing, an iron lung would basically do the breathing for you, and you'd be just lying in it, and it has a huge bellows. And it kind of forcibly constricts your lungs and makes sure you can breathe. And she said, do you want to have a chat about what that was like? And we were like, yes, please. Because there's not that many people still with a vivid memory of being in an iron lung who are alive anymore. And she was talking about how the rubber tube around your neck smells, and the fact that she was only fed lemonade and Wall's ice cream and liquid paraffin, I guess because that was probably a very easy thing to go through her system when she's very, very weak. But she still can't eat Wall's ice cream because she just ate nothing but that for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because, again, that really, really suddenly brought this object to life in like a very personal way. So yeah, whenever we show anyone around the stores, we try and get out just a sprinkling of objects that show a bit of the breadth of the collection, because there's way, way, way too much to show everyone, and it's all boxed up. But this is just a kind of little sporadic sprinkle. So of course, the surgery collection, you have to represent that because that is a strong part of the collection. This one is a post-mortem kit. So, you know, in the 19th century as now, if someone dies and it's not got a clear cause, then you might need to conduct a post-mortem to check how they died. And some of the tools really haven't changed very much at all.
Really?
We've had a modern pathologist come in and do some kind of live autopsies, and she looked at our tools and said, oh yeah, that's basically what I use now. Some of them very different. But yeah, so you got hammer for breaking the skull, for example. Again, that's for sawing through bones. Some of the larger sets have giant shears for cutting through the rib cage and removing that before you have to get to the organs. Some of them have a big long brain knife, which the pathologist called a butter knife.
Brain knife.
Yeah. She called these the vegetable knives. They have proper names, but that's what the pathologist called them.
I didn't know there was a particular knife for cutting brains, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
That's a new one for me.
It looks more like a normal butter knife. This is one of my favourite items just because we have a little hint of its history. And for most of the old surgical kits, because of when they date from, and the fact that a lot of them were originally purchased at auction, so we don't have like a personal story that came down with them to us. So this one, it's a pretty beautiful set. It's not one of our most complete. There's a lot of missing tools, which is why it's not on display downstairs. It does have some lovely, you know, obviously a lovely bone saw and some trepanning tools, so for cutting holes in the head. For example, if you have a fractured skull, then you can drill in and try and relieve the pressure on the brain and remove the fragments. But what I love about this one is it's got this inscription, and it's in French, which is not super helpful, but it says it's a token of esteem from the Bataillon de Cherbourg, so Cherbourg in northern France, and it's presented to Jean Ferret, their surgeon major, in May 1814. So that is towards the end of the Napoleonic Wars, which is my favourite period of time.
Okay.
Which is why I like it so much. But it just means that we have a name of someone who owned this and who probably used it. We don't know for certain if he used it for the remainder of the Napoleonic Wars. This is the point where he's abdicated for the first time. So everyone thinks it's the end of the wars, which makes sense that they're like, great, we'll commission this wonderful set and we'll present it to our surgeon major to say, thank you so much for helping us in this massive conflict. And then Napoleon comes back for like 100 days a year later. So you never know, it may have been used in that 100 days campaign, may never have been used again. But just having that little bit of story around it is really, really exciting. So we also have a pretty amazing hearing aid collection. So this is one of our older ones. This one is from the very start of the 19th century, so early 1800s. And you can see it's made for a very wealthy owner. It's this beautiful kind of filigreed silver. And this is made by F.C. Rhine and Son, who are a very, very prestigious manufacturer. They're based in London. This one is very much a kind of a statement of wealth, though. So this is very obvious, like, yes, I may be hard of hearing, but look at my wealth. Whereas sometimes people want to really, really disguise it, and they go to weird amounts of length to disguise the fact that they might need a hearing aid. So this one, for example, this is another ear trumpet. So it's doing the same job as this. It's hollow at this end, and this end can be held towards your ear, and it's designed to try and masquerade as a fan.
It's kind of like a fashion accessory almost.
Exactly. I don't know quite how successfully you could disguise it if you're using it properly, because if you're having to hold this to your ear, I think it's quite obvious that you're not using a fan. But you can, you know, just hold it casually the rest of the time and then just use it when you really need to. This is a cornet hearing aid. So it's these two things that will go in both ears and it'll sit on the top of your head. So, and it kind of is like a Princess Leia hairstyle. It's covered in real human hair. And it would be presumably put into an elaborate updo. So, you know, you disguise it with your own hair as well on top. So quite how well it would be disguised, I'm not sure. But it's incredible, the fact that someone's thought, I know what we need. Yeah. We need a hairpiece hearing aid. And we need actual human hair to cover it with. There's a couple of like acoustic beards as well, which are probably even worse because they're not covered in hair. They're just kind of black beard shapes. So presumably you kind of have them underneath your real beard. So then another big section of the collection is kind of pharmaceuticals and materia medica, so things that go into medicines and then medical products. So a lot of that includes fairly modern pill bottles and stuff. But again, today we've got out some of the really, really beautiful older ones. So a lot of these ingredients and materials come from across what was then the British Empire. And it's important to recognise like all of the contributions around the world into modern medicine and historic medicine. So this one, luckily for us, it has pretty good labels for what's in it. Sometimes you just get a bottle of white powder and you have to go, how likely is it that this is cocaine? And if there's any chance that it's cocaine, we have to treat it as though it is cocaine. And we do have a license to have controlled drugs. They are stored separately. They are carefully audited. There's a whole set of rules from the Home Office that we are very careful to adhere to, which is why there's some gaps. So the things that are gaps in this, they are things that we've removed and stored in locked safe because they're controlled drugs.
So everything inside these is actually what is its original contents?
Yes.
It's not just for show?
Yeah, absolutely. No, none of this is replica. This one's a nice empty example of something that had a very dangerous drug in it. So this is diarrhea drops that contains laudanum. And laudanum has a lot of powdered opium. It's basically opium and alcohol. So it would make you feel very sleepy and possibly great. And it would be generally quite effective against diarrhea because opiates are very good for diarrhea. But obviously they're incredibly addictive. And the fact that this was just available over the counter without any kind of oversight in terms of controlling dosage exactly. It'll obviously have a recommended dose, but it's not prescription controlled in the same way that it is now. And people who release medical products didn't have to specify exactly what the ingredients were, let alone the proportions necessarily. So there's an awful lot of things that hang around in old medicine cabinets and collections that are very harmful that would have to be carefully controlled today. I could make you guess what this is. You're not going to guess.
I have no idea.
This is just one of the most insane items we have, which is why I've got it out. So this is an incomplete tobacco smoke enema. So that is the rectal pipe there. And there's a kind of bellows situation here. So you literally blow smoke into someone's rectum.
Wow. So this was for medical purposes?
Yes, allegedly. Yes, there's a lot of things that are medical purposes according to the manufacturer.
I see.
So yeah, this one, they're designed to revive the apparently drowned. So there's a company that used to sponsor a lot of them to be placed along the River Thames in London, and they offered a reward if you managed to revive someone. So if you spotted a body floating down the Thames, this company was asking you to drag it out and then try and forcibly give them a tobacco smoke enema, and then write to them and say, I've revived someone, and get a reward, which is just an indignity that no one deserves, if you're in death.
So many
life,
questions.
Actually. Yeah. So it's just one of the weirdest objects we have. It's not that representative of a section of the collection, but we get it out because we need to share the pain of knowing this.
Yeah. So you don't sell these in the gift shop?
We do not.
Okay.
So as well as the object collection, what a lot of people don't realise is we have a library and we also have an archive. So the kind of very crude, broad difference between those is the library is full of published material, so books and catalogues, and then the archive is full of all kinds of other paper-based material largely, but it's kind of unpublished material. We also have these absolutely gorgeous recipe books. So because they're not published, they're handwritten. This is one of my favourite ones. It's probably everyone's favourite one. So this is our oldest of these. It dates from 1649, and it's originally filled out by a man called Benjamin Hayes. And I don't know if you can really see it very well, but this last recipe here, it's amongst other approved medicines for the pestilence. There is one where you take a cock, so like a cockerel, or a chicken, and you pull the feathers off the tail, or the tender part, and then you basically put the bare rump of the chicken onto your buboles or your pustules that you've got from plague until the chicken's dead. And the theory is that it will absorb everything from your bubo, and then it will die, and you repeat with more chickens until you're better and the chickens are dead. Which I have questions, but it's a wonderful thing to be able to read. And then this is my favourite book. It's kind of everyone's favourite book, to be honest, who's ever seen it. So this is the compilation of works from a French barber surgeon called Ambroise Paré, or Ambrose Paré if you're English. And this is a later English translation. So he is writing in the 1500s in France, and then this is a 1630s translation in English, and it's compiling all of his different works together, which means it's like basically him vomiting everything he's known ever in his life.
Wow.
So it's a fantastic book, because most of it is about medicine, and he was like a really trailblazing barber surgeon. He would because he's practicing in the 1500s in France. It's a very volatile time. It's the French Wars of Religion. So he does a lot of battlefield medicine and he revolutionizes that. He does some really early work with prostheses. But then the best section is probably the one at the back, because he has this whole thing. It's all medical. The whole book is all about medicine and anatomy until about this point. And then he has this massive chapter called Of Monsters and Prodigies. And he's just writing about all of the exotic animals he's ever heard of. And he's never seen them.
He's just heard of them.
Yes, so he's probably reading other people's descriptions and repeating them. Some of them are kind of accurate. This is the figure of an ostrich. Not an ostrich, an ostrich. But then some of them are less accurate. So sometimes it's real animals that you'll see. Sometimes he's just repeating tales that he's heard. So he's saying, in the year of our Lord 1531, there was seen a sea monster in the habit of a bishop. And here's what we think it might have looked like. So he's just kind of passing on weird gossip.
So you offer these tours out, or are you going to start again offering these tours out to the public soon? Or is it already happening?
We already do, yeah.
Are you already doing it? This isn't a sponsored video, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering. Natasha and everyone here is just super friendly and welcome to be in for a tour. Yeah,
so if you want to come and have a backstage tour of the stores, then we do offer public tours. So every couple of months at the moment, roughly, have a look on our website. There's currently ones available for May and July, and we're going to add some more dates soon. They're only small groups because we're quite a narrow space. We're an old workhouse and then a hospital, so it's very like a narrow layout. But yeah, you can come in and have a look at some of our favourite things that aren't normally visible to the public. And it's very fun for us to get to actually show them to people because no one normally gets to see them.
Yeah.
And you can also book a private store tour as well if you have a group of up to 8 people on a weekday.
Nice. And you've got like the rest of the museum as well, which we haven't looked at all.
Because any day, obviously, if you can't come to a group talk, if you can't come like with a group on a weekday or on the occasional weekend talks, come visit the museum.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is not part of the normal public tour, but what a lot of people don't realise is that as well as being a museum, we also do have a library. So it's not like a borrowing library, you can't just pop in and browse any day, but anyone is very, very welcome to have a look on our website, Collections Online, see what kind of books you might want to come and read, and then you can book in an appointment any weekday by contacting us in advance, and we'll get them out for you. It doesn't matter if you're like a student or an academic, you can be anyone at all, and you might be just wanting to photograph them, you might be wanting to just sit down and read them for fun. But yeah, we'd love more people to use the library because it's a brilliant resource. So it's got a big mixture of things. So some of them are really, really beautiful historic books. So these are probably some of the most fragile, the ones that we have here. These are from the 1700s, and these ones are in French, which probably not the ideal for your viewership, maybe. I don't know, you might have a huge French following.
We have a few French followers.
Amazing. But yeah, this one, I just love the illustrations in it. So it's a surgical textbook written by and for surgeons. And this is the aftercare of a leg amputation. And it's just like, can you imagine if you're having surgery, you're awake, by the way, because anesthesia doesn't exist yet, and your surgeon is wearing a powdered wig and high heels, and you might have an open wound. They might be operating on your stomach, and they might have just powder dripping off their hair onto you. It's amazing to me. So I love being able to see the kind of the visuals, as well as reading it about just how they advise you do surgery at the time. It's very, very different in some ways, and kind of weirdly similar in others.
That's going to be the end of our tour of the Thackray Museum in Leeds today. Thackray Museum of Medicine, sorry, the full name, right? What was this room called again?
This is the Apothecary Gallery.
This is the Apothecary Gallery. We haven't covered this room today, but if you do come to visit, you can have a full look around here. And the other 10 galleries?
Yeah. 11 permanent galleries and the temporary exhibition as well.
Cool. Loads of stuff to see. Highly recommend it. Have a look on the website for the tours and everything else if you're interested. Thank you so much for showing us around, to Natasha.
Pleasure.
And everyone else in the team. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've been here, let us know in the comments what you thought.
Tell us about the smell. That's what everyone tells us.
The smell?
How did the street smell to you?
How did the street smell? Okay. If you've been here,
you'll know what it means.
You'll know. If you haven't been yet, you'll have to come and find out what that means. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And fingers crossed, see you on the next one.